Of the Union County Board of Commissioners, and the first item of business is to review the amendments to the water and sewer ordinances, and ask Brian Matthews to come up.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Today I have before you two amendments to the water and sewer ordinance for your consideration. These are items that the board had directed staff to bring back to you for your consideration. So I'll give you a brief overview and synopsis of them and then answer any questions you might have. So the first item is with amending section 34-364 of the Union County Code. This has to do with the area where we provide for potential extensions for development. So the way our process works is a developer signs a water and sewer agreement with the county. That agreement provides for capacity for some period of time for that developer and the development. Specifically, they have 5 years in order to start and generally complete their project. Now, we understand that in this time, sometimes 5 years is not always an opportunity to finish a project. So the ordinance actually anticipates that if a project were to reach 50% of completion, but still not be complete in that 5-year window, that they could request an extension, and that extension would be for 3 additional years. And it's important to understand they have to be or reach that 50% mark to be able to apply for that first extension. The second extension, which is in the ordinance, is provides that after they've met the 50%, if they have met 75% of completion in that first 3-year time frame, but they're not completely finished, they can ask for an additional 3-year extension. So that's a total of 11 years to complete a project. The board had some concerns and reservations about that. So we brought back to you for your consideration to remove that second extension. So essentially, the first extension will stay in place. You get a 5-year window. If you cannot complete your project in 5 years, but you have met at least 50% completion, you can request and be granted a 3-year extension. But if the board were to adopt the ordinance amendment as it's presented, they would have only the 5 and the 3 for a total of 8. There would no longer be an additional 3-year extension. I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Vice Chairman Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be supporting this ordinance adoption. Water and sewer, especially sewer, is an expensive and a scarce resource. We all know that. And 8 years is a more than reasonable period of time for a developer, for an applicant to complete their project. At some point, we have to claw back that capacity that's sitting out there unused. I think it's high time that we change this, and I robustly support this change to the ordinance.
Any other discussion? Commissioner Rushing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree. Brian, just to make sure, when we don't have capacity available, like if it's the county's fault, not the developer's fault, they don't lose theirs?
Yeah, so keep in mind that the way projects work is the permit for the capacity is in our name. It's not in the project's, the developer's name or the project's name, so to speak. So we only issue permits when there is capacity to flow.
Right. So this wouldn't be a
This
thing.
doesn't
something where
affect anyone under those circumstances.
Thank you. That's what I need to know.
And I do want to clarify one thing, and I appreciate Vice Chairman Williams kind of prompted this. Just because someone does not reach completion doesn't mean they can't reapply and be reconsidered for capacity. It just means that that particular capacity at that point in time gets thrown back into the mix, They'd have to go back through the process and secure capacity, if it's available, if it's not, in order to finish their project. So it doesn't prevent someone from moving forward. It just says you have 8 years to get your project done. If you don't, you've got to go back to the line, beginning of the line, and start all over again.
Any other discussion? All right, call for the vote on, and the motion was to,
Yeah, I think let's formally make the motion. I move that we adopt the ordinance amending section 34-364 of the Union County Code.
all in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you. Okay, ARPA funding recommendations, I want to recognize.
So there's a second item, sorry.
I'm
Mr. Chairman.
sorry.
I'm sorry. So there's a second item, which is another amendment to our water and sewer ordinance. We thought it important to split the two, that way you could consider them separately. So the second proposed amendment to the water and sewer ordinance is Division 2 of Article 4 of Chapter 34. This specifically has to do with the board's direction and interest in having essentially a decision-making role when it comes to pump stations and pump overs. Essentially, the way we actually look at it is they're both the same. You have to pump. So whether you're pumping out of a basin to serve that development, or whether you're pumping inside the basin, is still a pumping requirement. So under the provisions of the ordinance, the board would have the ability to make decisions as far as pump stations. Now, understand that's important because there's also the provision for the expansion of existing pump stations. When and if an existing pump station is being considered for an expansion, growing that particular part of the system, the board will also have, if you vote in favor of this, a role in deciding to approve or deny that. There's a process set out by which the applications come in to the staff. We review it. Essentially, no pump stations are allowed. They are automatically disapproved. Only the board has the authority to approve if a request is made by the applicant or developer for that consideration. So the process as it comes in, we determine whether it needs a pump station or not. If it does need a pump station, we tell the developer or property owner, sorry, pump stations are not allowed. You can, Mr. Developer, Mr. Property Owner, request consideration. If they say yes, then the board would have some role at some time in the process to make that decision. I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
That's the Board of Commissioners,
That's the
not
Board
the
of
Board of
Commissioners.
Governors.
That's correct, Board of Commissioners.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Commissioner Rushing.
And it's based on a needs rationale, a utility-based
It is.
rationale.
I appreciate that. So essentially, the board's decision for approving or denying will be based on utility-based rationale. There is some rationale already put in here for the board to use when making those decisions. We may very well develop more as we go through this process, but there are some that's already identified within the ordinance change. We understand that this is a living document. We may find that our process needs to be amended, but at this point in time, we feel this is the best opportunity for the Board of County Commissioners to have a role in making these decisions.
So, Mr. Attorney, is there any specific legal language in the paperwork we have here that we need to make this motion?
I think a motion to adopt the ordinance changes presented will be sufficient.
Okay. I make a motion to adopt the ordinance changes presented.
So specifically moving to adopt the ordinance, motion to adopt the ordinance amending Division 2 of Article 4 of Chapter 34 of the Union County Code.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. Okay, we have a motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now, Deputy Manager Lancaster.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have some ARPA funding recommendations that we're going to revisit from last week, and also I want to talk to you a little bit and ask you to take some action on our state-funded ARPA projects. Just as a recap, you'll recall that I informed you a month or so ago about all the state allocations that we received funding for in the state budget process. 2 of these allocations are actually ARPA funds that the state is receiving that then through their budget process they have allocated to projects in Union County. Specifically, the first and the largest one is $35 million for the Yadkin Regional Water Supply Project, and second, $8 million for land acquisition, design, permitting, and construction of any of the following: a new water reclamation facility in the Crooked Creek watershed, or expansion of the Poplin Road pump station. Today, what we would like to do is spend some time on projects that have been identified for the $35 million. The way this process works is similar to what you've heard me talk about with the federal ARPA funds, and you'll hear me repeat in a few minutes. We have time constraints on these dollars, as well as in this case, we also have to enter into an agreement with the state of North Carolina because we are not considered a state agency. So because this is a large amount of money, and it also needs to meet the requirements of being allocated by the end of 2024 and spent by the end of 2026, we really want to get that ball rolling as quickly as possible. The $8 million projects we are working on, I think you're all aware of us working on some things in those areas that we'll be bringing back to you at a future date for final action. So at this time, I'm going to ask Brian to come up and give you more of the specific details, and then he or Public Works can answer questions. And what we're asking for in this specifically is action to approve the projects as presented and also authorize the manager to enter into any appropriate agreements with the state of North Carolina to get this funding moving forward.
Thank you. So in looking at how the projects were identified in the state budget, that gave us sort of our framework for how we would look for projects that fit this. It's our opinion, our understanding is that specifically for the $35 million, that was for the Yadkin Water Supply Project. We define that as CIP items that were specific to the water plant, the water line, the transmission line for that particular project. As the board may recall, you gave us direction to accelerate what was called the 762 zone transmission line, which actually runs from where the future water plant is, the one that's under construction, all the way to Highway 74, which connects our system and allows for that eastern side to now receive Yadkin water. That was anticipated to be done at a later date. It was always part of the Yadkin project, but funding, of course, was not set aside for that. The board said, we'd like to see that project move forward faster. So we started design on the project and are currently under design for that project, but then learned that the state had set aside some dollars for construction as well as design. We've already started design, so it doesn't apply for that, but we could use those funds for construction. Knowing that, we estimate the current project for construction, that's permitting, easement, construction, administration, legal costs, to be at $25 million. Now understand, this is a volatile market. This is an estimate. This is what we believe it will be, but it can always change. It can go up and go down, but we believe this project can be done for around $25 million. The board previously said we'd like to see this project move forward faster, and we think this meets the definition of what the state wanted or intended for us to spend these funds on. As you can tell, though, there is a surplus. If it is $25 million, we're about $10 million over. So what would we do with that additional $10 million? It's our recommendation that we continue that 762 transmission project. And that was also shown in future years for the Yadkin project. And that would extend that line to the south. Originally, that was intended to go, I believe it was about 8 or 9 miles, if I'm not mistaken. We don't believe that the $10 million is enough to carry the entire project. I don't think we can extend it the entire way. But we do believe that if that were to be the amount, that we could extend it approximately 4 miles. We would be able to cover that. It's 11.2 estimated total cost, but it would be our recommendation that when we go out to bid for these projects, that we make it flexible in that if for some reason we have additional money, we can certainly go as far as we can go with this project. If it means we can go 5 miles, we'll go 5 miles. If we have less funding, then we'll make it so we'll go 3 miles. It's whatever there's funding that's available past the original 762 transmission project. And the reason we think that's a good way to look at this is we're not tying our hands by saying we have to spend it on one project. We think we can get at least some of both of these projects completed. So I've got some details for you. One is a 24-inch transmission. That's the original line to Wingate. The second transmission line is intended to be a 12-inch line. That's simply because we don't anticipate there's significant growth in that area, so therefore it doesn't need to be as large a line to serve that area. That's why there's a difference in size. But they're both considered transmission lines to get water into those areas and serve it with Yadkin water. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Commissioner Rushing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Along that line, is there a line there currently for people who live along that line to be served with water?
So it would be, no, sir, there is not. I don't show that there's a specific water line there. Now, I will tell you that this is not being designed to be a distribution line.
Right.
It is being designed to be a transmission line.
So
Now,
with that said, one concern would be, if we're going to do that, would we get more bang for the buck to run the line while we're going through there for people to be able to be served? If we can't serve it with a 24-inch line, can we put a line in that could serve those people long? Because one common complaint I hear is that you're running pipelines through my yard, I can't get water.
certainly.
So I believe the sheriff's range is along that route as well,
Yeah, I believe it is.
close to it.
I believe it's close.
Mills.
It's close.
Yeah, so I think there was a water issue out there maybe at one time, so possibly putting in a line will help the county with that. But that might be where, again, running water lines past people's houses and they can't connect to them, you're going to have some discussion in the community about that.
So the board could certainly have us explore putting in essentially a parallel line that would be a distribution line. I understand that is something that you'd like to consider. We've discussed that for future projects. That is obviously something that you could ask to have that surplus to be looked at. This is my opinion. I don't know that the surplus would be enough to necessarily provide the entire length, but there's no reason why we can't look at it, figure out what we can do with it, and bring that information back to the board.
Brian, well, first, I'm confused. I thought on the money for this, I thought I was told that it had to go for transmission lines like this.
That is accurate, and that's a good point, Commissioner, Chairman Ray. I can't say for a fact that that would meet the test for being considered the Yadkin project. I think we'd have to have that discussion at the state level.
But the
You make a good
762
point. It wasn't intended to be a distribution line. That was not built into the program cost at this time. But we've not had that discussion with the state.
Commissioner Helms.
Yeah, when we talked originally about the Yadkin line coming across from Stanley County, one of the things that we were told is that at major intersections or whatever, even though it's a distribution line, there would be connections that can be, it's a 24-inch pipe, but you could run a 6-inch pipe off of it with the right connection. Will this apply to this as well?
We can. It's not designed at this point in time to give you that information, but we can certainly provide at major intersections, there would be connections for that.
Something that just occurred to me, Brian. If we ran an 8-inch line along with this 24-inch line, and it was being fueled from both ends,
Okay.
you know what I'm talking about, from the water tank in Wingate and from the water plant, then all of a sudden that 8-inch line is only half the distance that the 24-inch line is, because what I'm saying, it's going in at the water plant, but it's also can go back in at the water tank.
I'd hate to speak to the engineering for that. We're doing engineering from the diocese, and I don't know that I can say that that works or it
But
doesn't.
we were talking about parallel lines.
Yes,
And
sir.
if we dual feed it from both ends, that's gonna make more water could go to that area where we could give people water. John, would you be willing to say anything to that?
We have not looked at that with respect to this project.
I think I know what Dennis is saying without saying it. It's like if you go with a smaller line than 24-inch and you've got an 8-inch and another size, I mean, are you not filling up the
No,
tank?
are you talking about trying to downsize it from a 24?
No, I'm talking about the 24.
Right.
And the whole purpose of the 24 is to supplant our Anson County water use,
That's
which
correct.
we pay a lot more than we'll be able to make water for.
Yes, sir.
And you said running a dual line that we could tap onto,
Mm-hmm.
we could run an 8-inch line, and if it is supplied with water from the treatment plant and the Wingate water tower, then really it's like running an 8-inch line half of that distance, because it's getting fed.
Oh, okay, I see. From an engineering perspective, that sounds logical. We haven't studied it. Yes, I think what you're saying is from a pressure point, being able to make sure we're providing water, it may very well work that way.
Well, I'm just trying to come up with a way that the houses this water line goes by, they can tap onto a line.
Yes, sir. Remember, the current project does not allow for a parallel line. So the board would have to direct us that you want to do a parallel line. And then we'd also have to talk to the state as to whether they would consider that to be the Yadkin water.
But we could
project.
do that through short line extension.
If there's enough funding, yes, sir. You certainly
Right.
could.
Now, the question is, you're saying the state won't let us tap on to, the line needs to be a big transmission line.
The state is not the one dictating that. We're dictating that from a system perspective. It's a 24-inch line meant to feed that area for future water needs. When you start allowing taps, you take a highway and you make it a driveway. We don't want it to be a driveway. We want it to be a highway. We understand you want distribution. In this circumstance, it would be our recommendation, if you want distribution, that we do a parallel line for distribution. So then you're not affecting the transmission side of the water. But that's not built into this cost estimate, and we can't promise you that the state would allow that to be funded with these dollars.
Well, let me finish my question. But have we not been told in workshops it had to be used for transmission and not distribution?
We have recommended to the board that it should be our policy that we do not provide distribution on 24-inch or higher lines. They should serve as a transmission line only.
Commissioner Rushing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Go back a slide. Go back another slide.
That?
No.
This
where's
one?
that one?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a 12-inch line.
That one could be connected as distribution. And the reason why I
No,
would
no,
say, it
but
could
you
be
said-
connected is what I would say.
Okay, but you're saying we can only commit transmission lines.
No.
So how-
No, misunderstand me.
Okay.
Because this is a 12-inch line.
Right.
We would not treat it as a 100% transmission, much like we do with some of our
No,
other projects.
that's not the question. The
We would
question is-
allow connections along this.
That's right, that's not the
We
question.
would allow connections.
How do you use that money to pay for that?
Well, again, we're still calling it a transmission line, but we allow connections on it because of the size. The size is 12-inch. We're recommending that anything that's 24 inches or greater, you don't allow connections to it. We're not saying that the state would refuse us to have connections to a 24-inch line. If we build that 24-inch line and the board says, we want you to let everybody who wants to connect to it, the state's not going to care about that.
What's the maximum
We care about
size?
it.
What's the maximum size of a transmission line that can be connected to?
I don't know the answer to that.
But a 12-inch line would qualify as a transmission.
And distribution.
And usable distribution.
In our opinion, that is more than reasonable to allow those connections. We would not recommend you allow connections to the 24-inch. Much like we don't allow connections to the 36-inch pipe that's coming out of the facility.
Right.
It makes major connections at intersections, flows that water out into the system, but we are not allowing taps directly into that line. We would want to treat that transmission line, that's the 24-inch, the same way. That would be
Commissioners.
our recommendation.
Commissioner Simpson.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we allocate of the $35 million to begin the 762 zone 24-inch transmission line, and that we direct staff to explore with any excess funds the potential for a parallel line for distribution, and to also check with the state with regard to how that money, if it is acceptable to use that money in that way, if not to use it for that 12-inch to carry it further into the southern end of the county.
All right, we have a motion, discussion.
Lay it on us.
And if you would also add and authorize the county manager to enter into any agreements needed by the state to get these projects moving forward.
See it, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, have a motion, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we're going to go into the ARPA funding. This is a repeat of what you heard last week. The $35 million Yadkin ARPA funding, which are the dollars. Whoa. There we go. We reshuffled our deck a little bit. So just a little reminder for you, we are receiving or expected to receive, we've received half the funds of $46.5 million from the federal government and ARPA funding. And you'll all recall that you made decisions to allocate that into 5 different buckets: COVID-19 mitigation, strategic investments in county services, community and economic support, administration, and a holdback bucket. And specifically, the $32.55 million in strategic investments in county services, you received recommendations last week from Brown and Caldwell on projects that would fit into that classification. And so, as we told you then, we're back before you today to get action on those items. We are happy to walk through all those in detail if you need to, but we are here today to get the board's direction on those particular projects and that funding from the county's direct ARPA allocation. And I think Brian can walk through these if that's what you would like to do.
Commissioner Hale.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion. I would like to make a motion to table the discussion on recommendations regarding ARPA funding for Union County water projects.
Any discussion? Commissioner Rushing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be voting with Commissioner Helms on that motion. After the presentation the other night, I had 2 members of the community reach out to me with concerns over the projects and how they were chosen. So I agree tabling it until we can find out more information on items. Would be great. Thank you.
Commissioner Vice Chairman Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we owe it to our citizens to be a little bit more specific about the reasons for tabling this. Do any of my peers have any grave concerns or allegations of impropriety which they'd like to introduce regarding the expenditure of these funds prospectively for these water extension projects? Because, I mean, I'm inclined to table this if any of my peers have grave concerns or are alleging improprieties or alleging that unethical conduct has been engaged in terms of putting together this list of projects. if there are such concerns, then they need to be owned up to.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Rushing.
thank you. Of the 6 projects, 4 of those projects pass properties that are in control of people who have donated to my campaign and 2 other commissioners' campaigns at least. And I would like to make sure that we're on the up and up before we take a vote on this. So I've had, when I had members of the community call me and say, this company has a development going on this road, this company has land on that road, this company has property on that road and on that road. Out of 6 projects, 4 projects were projects who've donated to my campaign and who've donated to other commissioners' campaigns. And that's a concern to me that I want to make sure that these decisions were made for the right reasons. To pass the smell test. Right now, I don't think it passes the smell test. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Perhaps the county manager or deputy county manager can speak to this. Who actually developed this list of projects for the water extensions? And beyond who or what entity came up with these recommended projects, can one of you speak to the process, how these projects were recommended to us? What factors were considered?
Vice Chairman Williams and members of the board, the firm of Brown and Caldwell, who were consultant engineers for the county, developed this list in conjunction and in consultation with Union County Public Works staff. They've been working on this for quite some time. Brown and Caldwell is very familiar with Union County and Union County's water distribution system. They are your consultants on your water master plan. They are the design engineers for the 762 project that you just voted on. They are the engineers for the Phase 2 Crooked Creek Improvement project, and they are the quality control engineers on your Poplin EQ tank construction. They are very familiar with Union County and Union County's water system. They met with staff, developed an initial list, subsequent meetings with the county management team to go over that list and the presentation that was made last week. It was not an arbitrary methodology for putting together those recommendations. They first looked at areas of the county that had bad water or low producing wells. Same criteria we use for the short line extension programs. In fact, they had done some preliminary work on that short line extension program now I guess it's over a year ago. But so they were familiar, they have that data set, they are familiar with where those, where the bad water is in the county. They also looked at the system, at our current water system, in those areas where we have bad well water, to see where do we have current Union County water infrastructure and what are the size of those pipes. They looked at their engineers, so they studied the hydraulic modeling of the system to determine, how long the water stays in the lines, how fresh is it when it is received for use by customers, those types of things. They next looked at, so as part of that and having that information, they looked to see where they could make system improvements. If you have a water line going down Road A and a water line going down Road B, and there's a connector Road C, making that connection with a water line and improving, creating what's commonly referred to as a loop, and increasing or the freshness of the water, and improving the pressure in the system, and those types of things all went into that review. The other thing they looked at is the 2050 master plan that the board adopted just here in the last few months, and taking a look at not only where is the current population located relative to these bad water and to the system that we currently have, but what is the plan for growth in those areas? Are these projected to be higher growth areas? Is it planned to grow by 20% or more? Those types of things. The bottom line is to get clean, fresh drinking water into these areas, to do so, and while doing so, improve the efficiency of our system, serve as many residents along the way as possible, and create a situation where we have an opportunity for future growth in the customer base. So you're creating a situation where the system pays for itself over time. That's the methodology that was used to make these recommendations. We have Brian and John Shutak and Hung Yi here. Have I left off anything? I think I've covered the list in terms of the items that were reviewed to develop these recommendations.
You have, I do want to clarify that we did present, or the consultant did present this to the board previously, and we went through an exercise of showing you the methodology that they were using at that time. At that time, it was 50% population and 50% water quality, well water quality, as the reasons that they would have segments that would be chosen. This is done by road segments. What they did is they evaluated every road segment, and after they looked at the road segments, they said, how can water be provided to those segments that have the highest score? Originally, the score was 50% population, and that was future population, not just existing population, and 50% well water quality issues. The board gave some feedback at that time. You wanted existing current population to play a role in those factors. So consultant went back, looked at that from a current population perspective, said, okay, what's the current population? They weighted that. They weighted future population, because obviously that's still important. And then they also looked at, well, are there any potential short line customers that are close or could be served by any of these potential road segments? So those were all lumped in to the rating classification, as well as well water quality data. So that's how they arrived at the highest scoring projects.
Thank you, Brian.
And Mr. County Manager, should we have a commissioner that wishes this board to authorize an investigation, could you speak to what that commissioner would need to do to get that started?
Certainly, the board has established rules of procedure that were adopted by the board in April of 2004, I believe, that lay out the expectation for ethics, et cetera, behavior of the board. If there are any concerns with any of those items that are outlined in the board's policy, they should make the board aware through communicating that information to the clerk. And then the board would take up that information. If an investigation was warranted or approved by the board, then the county attorney would be directed to perform that, or at the county attorney's choosing, may sub that out to a legal firm that could handle that work.
Well, speaking for myself, this is a cloud of suspicion that has descended on citizens of this county, on some commissioners, on staff, on consultants who have done work for us for a long time and to a significant degree. I think if we have a commissioner that is keen on having this board authorize an investigation, I think having it done sooner rather than later is paramount. Our county manager has explained how to get that started. If Commissioner Rushing wishes to file a complaint and allegations with our board clerk, I would be prepared as soon as the next regular meeting to entertain a motion to investigate. I think it's also fair that in addition to documentation and evidence brought by commissioners, that others in the community be invited to speak to this. Because it's not just our reputations, it's not just the consultant's reputation, it's the reputation of citizens in this county that a cloud now descends on. So I think I want to thank the county manager for explaining the process, and if an investigation is what Commissioner Rushing wishes to proceed with, then let's do it with all speed and start the process.
Commissioner Rushing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, and I think, Commissioner Williams, that you're right, that if this be handled, I spoke to the county manager today about this and was told that I couldn't bring anything up tonight. It would be another meeting that I would need to bring this up at. I think what some of my fellow commissioners may not be aware of is in 2007, after I was off the previous board, I had a county commissioner at that time approached me about an FBI investigation into Union County and the things going on with Public Works, that commissioners at that time were accused of asking for special treatment for developers within the county. That commissioner came to me at my place of work and told me that they needed to settle with the county manager because some of our developer friends would be caught up in it and be hurt. What that commissioner didn't understand at the time is that I'm the one that sent the FBI most of their information. So it's something that concerns me with federal dollars, and this isn't local dollars. This is federal funding that we need to be completely transparent with, that we understand, has this engineering firm done business with these companies and individuals? Has this engineering firm, do they have contracts with these businesses? And if they do, I would just like to know it before I vote on it. If they don't, then I would like to know that too. But the complete transparency of this, with the direction of 4 projects of the 11 presented, 6 were chosen and recommended. Of the 6, 4 go past projects being worked on by certain individuals and who have donated to my campaign in the past and who have donated to others' campaigns in the past. So this is something that I want to make sure that we're completely transparent in what we're doing with federal money, not state, not local money, federal dollars. And if these projects are those great, I just remember projects where the whole neighborhood had arsenic in the wells, and it's nowhere on this. I remember a lot of projects where we saw contaminated wells, and it has not very much to do with this. Our money that we're using right now for pushing lines out into the county versus our money for like the short line extension program. A lot of these projects seem more like short line extension programs than they did transmission projects out into the county. But no, I would love, trust me, from being from the Unionville area, I was so excited to see these projects the other night. I was thrilled because these people up there have waited a long time for water, and it's in places that I would have loved to put water. But I don't want to do it at the expense of going to prison for federal funds. So I just want to make sure that we're clear that why these were chosen, that there's no connection with our staff or with the engineering firms. And if the next meeting it's no charges against anybody. I'm not charging myself, I'm not charging any other commissioners. I'm just saying it's going to look awful funny to people, and it ain't going to pass the smell test if any of us have gotten money from these people and we're putting projects beside four projects that they have and properties that they have. And I spoke to one of the people up that's been on us for a long time that's on one of these projects, and I said, I'm probably going to have to vote against this tonight or today if we do this today, and he understood completely. So thank you so much for your concern, and I'll be working with the county manager to see what we need to do from here. Thank you.
Commissioner Ames.
I've been involved in politics in the county for about a dozen years, and this is probably one of the most egregious activity, because what Commissioner Rushing's not telling you, he was just coming after his two opponents that in the thing. So this whole thing's political. Now he's changing his tune trying to include himself. It's accusing that David was a little nicer when he said people are under cloud, but it's accusing people of ethics violations, and some of our most respected community members that contribute to this county. We've got a number of individuals that own a lot of land around the county. You almost couldn't go down the road without hitting some of theirs. But this, I'm adamant that this is purely politically motivated. And if we're going to talk ethics, I'd like to know what happened to the guns that disappeared and all of a sudden were found on his premises, and also understand why he gave up his federal firearm license, which, I tell you what, I'm a realtor, and giving up my real estate license is huge. So, look, if we're going to be transparent, let's be transparent. If we're going to look at investigating anybody, let's look at all of it.
Commissioner Rush.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I wasn't going to get into this in the media or with this until we found out more information. I will tell you that commissioner in 2007 that approached me was Parker Mills. So I was not going to use his name, and I was going to let this go through, but since you want to be political about it, we'll be political about it. The reason I gave up my federal firearms license is because every 3 years it comes up for renewal. In 2020, my wife and I built a vacation home at the beach, and we like to spend time at the beach more than we like running back and forth to Union County and back to the range in Union County. The 5 guns that you're so concerned about were stolen from a UPS facility in Anson County, North Carolina. They delivered a box to us that was empty. The only thing that it had in that box was serial numbers on the 5 Heritage Rough Rider handguns. Those handguns were about $100 a piece. So if you think I'm going to lose my reputation or license over $500 worth of guns, I've got about $30,000 worth of inventory. Now, that gun that were also stolen in Wadesboro, the Anson County Friends of the NRA banquet, that department lost guns that were in the thousands of dollars. One of the guns was the gun of the year. So again, the chairman gavelled a speaker for playing politics, and you commended him from playing politics from the bench. I have not played politics from the bench. I've answered your questions. You, sir, are playing politics from the dais. You, sir, are the one that's chosen that. And again, if you're asked the ATF, ask the background checks that I get for teaching concealed carry and hunter safety, and the FFL I still have in South Carolina, where we have our business. Go into that. But this is just, I think Dennis, I will tell you this, Chairman Rate has gone around and told people that story about the missing guns. The missing guns were not stolen. The sheriff's here. You ever had to arrest me for stolen guns, Sheriff?
About a lake
Not lately. So the sheriff hasn't had to arrest me for any stolen guns. The NRA, I'm still an NRA instructor and still a transfer dealer for the NRA through South Carolina. Anytime somebody who comes to our great events, who Parker Mills asked me to transfer those guns, and I did for him for free, Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Helms, for free. And Parker Mills called the chairman and told him to take his Facebook post down because he said something that was inaccurate. Parker knew what went on, but Parker Mills did tell the chairman, and like I told Parker Mills at the time, I said, Parker, Dennis is a useful idiot at times, but at the end of the day, he's an idiot, and he's going to tell people that you told him that. And he did, and he admitted to it. So if you'd like to talk to Parker Mills about the water situation, if you'd like to talk to Parker Mills about the gun situation, y'all are welcome to do that. But don't play this gotcha game. When I sent an email that he was concerned about on Friday, after I learned the information, this wasn't the politic up here on the dais. This was an internal email to the county manager who said he had concerns after seeing the email, and that's the whole point here. So, you know, if you want me to answer any more questions, I'll be glad to answer them. I don't think you're going to like the answers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I can just bring the temperature down a little bit, I'd like to just encourage Commissioner Rushing. Let's dot our I's and cross our T's. Let's do this in the right way. Please get with the clerk of the board, submit your written complaint. We can add this as an item on the next regularly scheduled meeting agenda and make this an item for possible board action on an investigation where we can hear from you, where we can hear perhaps from others on the board, and people in the community who may feel like their reputations have been put in play. I just would ask that we start this process in the right way. And with that, I'd like to have us vote on this motion, Mr. Chairman, to table, if we might.
Okay, we will in a minute. I want to say something. For you to call me a useful idiot with all the ethical and moral bridges you have burned, that's sad.
Yeah, it's sad that you would go around repeating something of which you knew not what you were talking about. And
Mr. Mills told me that he had to pay to replace those guns.
Mr. Mills didn't have to pay to replace those guns. The National Rifle Association paid for those guns. And Mr. Mills is telling you something like that, he's incorrect. They were stolen from a UPS facility in Anson County. They caught the thieves who stole not only Union County's guns, they stole guns from the Anson County too. So again, before you go spreading things that you're not aware of and telling people I lost my FFL license, I didn't renew it. It costs $90, and my wife does not want to come up and transfer guns in Union County while we have stuff to do down in South Carolina at the range. That's the simple fact of it. And I will say this, that I'm not going to pursue it anymore with you yahoos. I'm going to call the FBI and talk to them about it and let them look at it and let them investigate it, because it's clear that if you guys decided to do something like this, then y'all are capable of whatever. So we'll let the FBI, if they want to look at it, they can look at it. If they don't, they don't. But I'm not going to vote for this because it doesn't pass the smell test.
Call the question.
All right.
Mr. Chairman.
Motion to table
Mr.
this
Chairman.
action until our next meeting.
Commissioner
Can I
Simpson.
just ask
Commissioner
for one clarification from Michelle or Brian? This was brought to us as a group of projects, is that my understanding?
Yes, I think
So
there
the-
were 11 and we recommended
So the-
6.
So 6, and that would be one motion to approve those 6?
Yes, you could take it up however you'd like.
Right, okay. Just wanted to clarify.
They could be individual or as a group, however the board
Gotcha,
wishes.
gotcha, thank you.
Call the question. Vote to table this till our,
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
You got to vote on the call question first.
all right. We need a vote on to call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Commissioner Helms has made a motion to table this until our April 18th meeting. All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
All right.
Mr. Chairman, I'd also like to make another motion. I'd like to make a motion to instruct staff to bring the board a list of projects that would meet high-priority community needs that could be funded with the $32.55 million anticipated to be allocated for water projects. These projects should be reviewed to ensure that they qualify as ARPA-funded projects. I would like this presentation at our next board meeting on April 18th.
Any discussion? All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, we are going to move into the budget presentations at this time. This afternoon, you have presentations from Building Code, Environmental Health, Planning, the Register of Deeds, and the Sheriff's Office. And so I'm not sure who decided to go first. Mark, come on up. You're familiar with the process now of the budget workshop template. That's what you will see from these folks this afternoon. And so if you have any questions, please direct them to them, and you all can just go in the order that you agreed on. The sheriff's going to be right.
Good afternoon, Chairman Rake, Vice Chair Williams, Commissioners, Manager Watson. I appreciate the opportunity today to provide the board with an oversight of what we do in building code enforcement. It was 2015, New Year's Day. My wife and I were sitting in a local restaurant having dinner. A nearby TV had the evening news on, and the news story of the day was a horrible high-rise fire in Dubai. The pictures were horrific. She said to me, I hope that never happens here. And I said, it can't. She said, why? I said, because our building codes won't allow that type building to be constructed of combustible materials. You see, what we do is important. Very seldom do you hear of electrocution in a swimming pool, even though they're filled with underwater electrical lights. When you're sitting in a theater with your family or grandchildren, as I often do, it's so dark you can't see your hand in front of your face, but you can always see those two exit signs that will get you out of that building. There's a problem. These events don't take place just by happenstance. And the codes that we enforce that make our buildings safe, they're often taken for granted. So while public safety is certain to be our #1 strategic objective, I'd be remiss if I didn't take just a minute to tell the board about our organizational strengthening, or how we contribute to that. We have 18 staff members at Building Code Enforcement that are certified by the state to do inspections. Of those 18 staff members, we have a total of 612 years experience. That averages 34 years experience per inspector within our department. If you request an inspection today and my rookie shows up, he has spent the past 17 years honing his craft in this industry. And if you require an electrical inspection and my most senior staff member shows up, he's been a practicing unlimited electrician for 45 years. I have the privilege of traveling all over the state, speaking to many jurisdictions. And while there are some bigger, there are a lot of jurisdictions bigger than Union County when it comes to building code enforcement. But I challenge any inspection department in the state of North Carolina to match the amount of experience that we have in Union County. We are second to none. We currently enforce building codes. We have inspection jurisdiction throughout the county, throughout all municipalities, with the exception of the city of Monroe and the town of Waxhaw. We have currently 24 full-time staff members. We have 14 field staff, 10 office staff, and we have 2 part-time office staff personnel. We receive no federal nor state revenue. Our FY22 projected revenue is slightly over $3 million. And our projected expenses, about 2.8, with a projection of net revenue of approximately $207,000. So how do we measure success? How do we keep our fingers on the pulse of what's going on? 3 different methods we look at most frequently. The first one is the number of inspections performed. We are projected to perform slightly less than 74,000 inspections this year. That's up 14% from last year, and it's up 43% from 2019. We also look at the number of permits that we issue through building code enforcement. We're projecting some 9,200 permits to be issued this year. That's up 4% from last year, as well as 21% from 2019. Within those total number of permits issued, we drill down and look at the number of single-family dwelling permits that we issue. That seems to be the topic that everybody wants to know. We're projecting to be slightly less than 2,200 single-family dwellings this year at 2,174. That is up 44% from last year and 106% from 2019. Lastly, we monitor the number of inspections per inspector per day, establishes our workload. Each individual inspector this year is projected to perform 5,258 inspections. That's up 16% from last year, and that is up 22% from 2019. Over the last 3 years, the Department of Insurance has issued to staff 28 different inspection certifications to our inspectors. We've had 2 office personnel to become certified by the International Code Council as certified permit technicians. We've had 1 staff member to conclude a 7-year appointment by Governor McCrory to the North Carolina Board of Examiners of Electrical Contractors. We've had 2 office staff members be awarded by this board the Lifesaver Award. And the part that I'm most proud of on this page, during our recent COVID pandemic, we had no loss of service. Not one day was there not a permit issued. Not one day was there not an inspection performed. We've also recently developed an interlocal agreement with the City of Monroe to help those guys out with a backlog. Last year, we had a staff member to be awarded the North Carolina Electrical Inspector of the Year award. We've had several senior staff members to serve as judges for the North Carolina Apprenticeship Contest over the last 5 years. Last year, we had a staff member appointed to an ad hoc committee to develop the North Carolina Electrical Code. Not just give input, but to develop the code that North Carolina would follow in the upcoming code cycle. These honors don't just happen. Union County Building Code Enforcement staff maintains what I like to call a first-name basis with the Department of Insurance, the North Carolina Board of Examiners of Electrical Contractors, GC Board. We are in frequent contact with all the regulatory boards in this state. Recently, this board approved 2 positions for full-time inspectors. Also, this board approved the upgrade of field staff computer systems. Moving forward, some key initiatives. We have to maintain timely inspections. Our lawmakers implemented a law that requires that we respond to an inspection request within 72 hours of the time we receive it. Otherwise, the contractor is entitled to a refund of partial of the permit fee. Earlier, I spoke of having 34 years' experience average amongst inspectors. There's a flip side to that, and that is that 72% of our certified inspectors will be eligible to retire in 5 years or less. So succession planning is certainly high on my priority. Recently, Union County has developed a new website, and specifically, Building Code Enforcement is working closely with planning and environmental health to establish a central page or a launching off point for those interested in the building aspect. A lot of folks, a lot of departments touch a building permit long before it's ever issued. And we're trying to centralize all that information to make that journey a little easier. Future issues, challenges. We see an increased demand for services. I've illustrated just how many inspections we're doing a year. Those retirements, we're going to have to address that employee attrition. Do we accept younger, less experienced applicants, perhaps right out of trade school, and develop some sort of training program to mentor and bring them along? Or do we continue to source out those many years of experience? Those are all challenges that we face. We recently have signed into law the requirement that every jurisdiction provide a contractor with what's known as virtual inspections. That means that they can request an inspection be done without the inspector going to the site. It's done virtually, remotely, via smartphone. That's another challenge that we have. So we're working around how to fit virtual inspections into what we do daily. Currently on our front counter, if you come down to room 47, we have 5 building code enforcement staff sitting on the front counter along with 1 from environmental health. We need more staff. Simply, there's no place to put them. So we're quickly outgrowing our room. Opportunities. The biggest complaint that I get, or any other director of building code enforcement, is the lack of consistency amongst inspectors, whether that's from county to county or even within one county itself. So we continue to hold consistency meetings with our staff to make sure that everyone understands the interpretation that has been developed by the county as to how we're going to enforce that segment of code. We will continue, we will continue to develop mentorship. How do we find applicants when we have smaller applicant pools? Do we develop that mentorship program I spoke of? Customer service. We hear it every day. Our customers want more. They deserve more. Oftentimes they want more than we can give them. But we want to simplify the best we can the permitting inspection process. Gentlemen, that's all I have today. I'd be more than happy to try to answer any question that you might have over what we do in building code enforcement.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Helms.
Mark, I want to tell you that I'm in the process of utilizing your staff. I can tell you I'm impressed with the professionalism, the expertise that come out there, and including yourself, that your department is representing this county very well.
Commissioner, I appreciate the kind words. What I would say to that would be if there's any praises to be sang about building code, it's staff. It's not me. I am involved with a team of experts. And
that's what I've seen.
It's not me. I promise it's not me, but I appreciate the kind words.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mark, you had mentioned the wave of retirements that is on the horizon. How are you navigating that, and what are some things that we can do to recruit new folks, good folks, and if you have any recommendations in that regard to the board, please share.
I think many of my predecessors have spoken to the fact that we simply can't compete in the private sector. I don't have an electrical contractor working for me, and by the way, all of our electrical inspectors are unlimited electrical contractors. All of my building inspectors have either been GCs or superintendents or manager superintendents or framed houses all their lives. All of these people, quite frankly, can make more money in the private sector. The hard thing is when you bring someone on and you put the energy into training them and developing them to be an inspector, because it's one thing to build a house, it's entirely something else to inspect that house. Obviously, salaries come into play. The board has already assisted to a certain extent. We need to get to the point to where we could have staffing levels adequate that we can train. We run bare bones, as most county departments do. We don't have a lot of fat. We don't. And I don't have the time for an inspector to actually train a second inspector. I need both of them doing what they get paid to do. If we could somehow arrive at an understanding of a mentorship program or a training program to where we could double up inspectors for a while, take that young inspector and bring him in and try to bring him on to speed, I think that would help a lot. But we're never going to be able to compete with the private sector. I don't think we are, but we offer some intangible benefits that you can't get in the private sector as well, and I understand that. So I appreciate the question.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mark.
Mark did not touch on the fact that this is a statewide issue, probably actually a national issue. Younger inspectors are not coming up through the ranks. I mean, he can tell you that his meetings with the state level, the average age of the inspectors is roughly in their 50s. So we're just not seeing an influx of young people to this profession. Obviously, we try to do what we can to get interest in that, but it's a challenge because we just aren't seeing people migrate into that in that role. So that's another challenge we face.
Thank you, Brian.
Mark, you know how I feel about you from the days that you taught electrical at the old Career Center at night. You're the most professional building inspector I could ever imagine.
Thank you, sir.
Rick, of course, Susie, I call her the assistant county manager because if I can't get an answer, I go to her and she usually knows. And all your staff down there is super. And of course, the other side of the room in there with Tracy Colley, who will be coming up in a little bit, they're great too. So, you know, I know you're working on your budget with, I guess, Brian. Any pressing needs, please let him know so that we can see if we can make it happen.
Thank you, sir.
Any other comments? Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the kind words.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman Raitt, Commissioners, Manager Watson. Appreciate the opportunity to be here today to talk about environmental health and the important services we provide for the citizens of Union County. When we look at the vision statement and strategic objectives you set for the organization, environmental health most closely aligns with public safety. But I think you can draw a direct line of association to the other objectives, and you'll see examples of this as we move through the presentation. When we look at environmental health and how we're structured and operate, we have three primary programs: food, lodging, and institutions, on-site water protection, and children's environmental health. These programs function throughout Union County and across all municipalities in accordance with North Carolina general statutes and rules. We are also responsible for enforcement of the ordinances for mass gathering and solid waste management in unincorporated Union, the towns of Hemby Bridge and Mineral Springs. When we look at how we're structured and how much it costs to do what we do, environmental health has 26 full-time staff and 3 part-time staff. That's 7 in food, lodging, and institutions, 3 in children's environmental health, 3 in administration, including myself and our customer service folks, and 13 in on-site water protection. We currently have 3 openings in the on-site program. We receive revenue primarily from fees in the on-site program, for plan review for commercial facilities, as well as annual permits for tattooing facilities, as well as public swimming pools. We do receive revenue from the state as in the form of an agreement addendum, and we receive the maximum amount possible because we complete 100% of our mandated inspections and satisfy the requirements for a QA program. In environmental health, data collection and analysis is very important. We count, or it seems like we count and account for most everything we do. Our data is used to identify public health trends and epidemiological issues in the community and can drive solutions. Here we have 3 proxy measures of performance, including permits, all environmental health permits, inspections, and service requests. Service requests would include things like complaint investigations, plan reviews, anything outside of permits and inspections, those would be separate. Between the fiscal years of 2019 and 21, we see a 23% increase in permit issuance in environmental health and a 53% increase in service requests during that same time frame. We're expecting those trends to continue on into the future. Environmental health responds in accordance with our population and our development that's occurring in the county. In environmental health, we have a number of accomplishments. This is kind of a busy slide, so I'm going to hit on the primary accomplishments. We initiated our digitization of our septic and well records. Our septic permit records go back to the mid to late 70s, and our well records go back to approximately 2008 at the inception of the well program at the state level. We completed detailed mapping of our well water contaminants, arsenic, manganese, bacteria, coliform E. coli, and also our clusters of known malfunctioning on-site systems. And then this information is shared with consultants with the county so that can influence some decisions that are made. We responded to Hurricane Florence in 2018 by providing free well water sampling for those in areas where the flooding affected their wells. And also we provided free mosquito larvicide that following spring for those to kind of cut down that mosquito population. Environmental health is part of public health, and we're a core component, so we participated in public health accreditation. In fiscal year 2020, we drafted a revised solid waste ordinance. We put in place our environmental health education and outreach program. We participated in the Clean Water for Carolina Kids program, which focused on the elimination of lead in drinking and cooking water in licensed child care facilities in North Carolina. That's the first program of its kind. We also are partnering, continuing to partner with UNC Chapel Hill's Superfund Research Program. That program is focused on developing new solutions to reduce arsenic exposure and prevent arsenic-induced diabetes. So there are 2 focus areas. One is biomedical, and the other is more focused on environmental science and engineering. We actually have selected a location in Union County to drill a research well, and this studies that are associated with that well are going to speak to the influence that the aquifer and the soil have on the contaminants in the water. And that may influence our ability to site wells better and also understand at what point that becomes an issue in the depth and construction of a well. The other focus of that project is developing newer, low-cost residential treatment options for arsenic removal and their co-contaminants, so that would cover your manganese as well. Obviously, environmental health is part of public health, so we also responded to COVID-19, executive order implementation, guidance, outbreak investigations. Many of our facilities that we regulate were impacted greatly by those executive orders, closures, that kind of thing. So we really supported them through this process to get them through. In fiscal year 2021, we're happy to say we hired our very first soil scientist in Union County. This has added a great deal of depth to our department and added credibility to our field work, and also served our customers. It's a way for us to better evaluate complex sites and move that project along. We expanded our on-site water protection QA initiative to include the random selection of sites that are evaluated by field staff, since a lot of them are new on our team, to make sure those evaluations and permits that are issued are quality. One of our team received the standardization as an FDA officer. That really adds a lot of depth to our program too, and really is seen in the community as a reduction in foodborne illness in our facilities. We worked with IT to convert our forms to Laserfish format to be fillable and submittable, and that's accessible through our website. 2 of our programs so far have completed that. We implemented a new environmental health software. The Children's Environmental Health and Food and Lodging program are already using a digital format, so this brought the on-site program along and moved them from paper to more of a digital format, and that's still underway. In fiscal year 22, we completed the first phase of our ESRI ArcGIS project. That's where we use applications that have been developed and some equipment to geolocate the locations of existing on-site systems and proposed systems, and create maps, and also create the design drawings for inclusion with those permits. And we're looking to move forward with the next phase of that, which will include wells and other features. We assisted with the short waterline extension program in cooperation with Union County Water. We were recently awarded 3 National Environmental Health Association and FDA grants. That's going to really also assist our food and lodging and children's program to better serve the community. And as I stand here right now, the wait time for environmental health services for soil and site evaluations is roughly 2 to 5 weeks, down from about 14 weeks in 2019. Our key initiatives really just carry through the work that we've already done in prior fiscal years, working on staff investment, retention, always working to improve training, continuing to use technology to improve efficiency and the quality of our services, partnering with other agencies or community groups to enhance our environmental health education and outreach. And then we're looking forward to initiating a couple of really great opportunities, the well rehab and repair program, and hopefully the on-site wastewater system rehab and repair program. And then in fiscal year 23, we're looking to finalize that revised draft of the solid waste ordinance and request adoption. So future issues, challenges, and opportunities. I'd like to mention several challenges and opportunities to consider. Environmental health divisions across North Carolina are wrestling with staff shortages, so this is under staff recruitment, retention, and succession planning. Professionals are seeking opportunity, and they have a choice between private sector or public sector careers. Union County is competing, as Mark mentioned and Brian mentioned, competing with private sector employers, which typically offer greater pay. As a result of the current labor shortage, which in Union County started, at least with environmental health, started prior to COVID, 75% of our current field staff have been hired in the last 5 years, in the last 3 years. These employees, these new employees, replace prior employees that left our department to go to other counties or private sector to receive more lucrative positions. Really, as one of the strongest counties in the state with an exceptional environmental health division, we want to make sure we can continue to attract top-notch employees to, and then also not lose track or lose sight of compensating our valuable existing employees who are training and mentoring new staff. So proper staffing levels will be critical to meet the increasing demand for our services moving into the future, and this includes our administrative staff as well, which is what I would like to address next. So our workload in environmental health has nearly doubled since 2008, and that trend is expected to continue. Improved processes, distributing tasks, and sharing customer service duties with another department have enabled us to keep up with demand. While we share some duties with cross-trained building code enforcement frontline staff, we'll foresee in the future the need to add additional staffing in that area. As far as office space, with our current staffing levels, we're out of additional workspace. There's nowhere to expand. As we add staff in the coming years, we'll need to probably revisit the space assessment that was already performed by the county and look toward adopting their recommendations. We want to continue forward with our technological innovations and keep an eye on the demand for environmental health services so we can always meet that demand based on our customers' expectations. I'd like to mention several public health trends we're keeping an eye on in environmental health. We're seeing increasingly complex food processes and operations in our facilities, and we're aware of some emerging foodborne pathogens that are in the community nationally and internationally. With the development of properties with marginal and more complex soils, many of the systems that are able to be permitted on those sites are very complex. The engineering is more complex. And with those systems brings with them the need for more maintenance and oversight. They work with a certified operator typically, so we want to do the best we can to educate property owners that are having those types of systems on their property so they understand how they function and the importance of maintenance and operation. We're receiving higher level of housing-related complaints, particularly associated with rental properties, landlord-tenant issues. You know, during COVID, a lot of people went home, so that's a greater stress on their homes. And we're receiving more complaints related to indoor air quality, mold, moisture, and other related issues. And with the asthma rates in Union County, that's a concern to us, and we want to continue to keep an eye on that. And finally, vector issues. So mosquitoes in particular, we're receiving additional complaints related to mosquito populations and breeding sites. And that may be due to our changes in weather patterns that we're seeing, our flooding that we're seeing, the example in 2018 of Hurricane Florence, and also land development, the changes in land use, the removal of vegetation, which allows water to drain more quickly and pool and flood. I just wanted to say thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate your support of environmental health, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Well, Tracy, I've known you since the days of Tom Ward and then David Cunningham.
That's a long time ago.
Yeah, and you've always been the same professional person, working your way up to the very top of your organization. And the people like Ramona and Gina and Meredith and David Finley, you know, they're just so consistent. And I'm glad to hear the time on the perk test has come down. I don't think a lot of people realize the stress of making a proper evaluation of the dirt to guarantee them a system that will work. We'll never have anybody better than y'all, you and Mark in that department. And
Appreciate that.
I'm sure you will, but when you know somebody for 30 years or 20 years, I know Mark can tell me the days till he retires. And, but I really appreciate all your professionalism and the customer service. I really hadn't got the first year I was on here, I got a couple of complaints from one guy, but he's subject to fight sometimes, so in building trades, so that was kind of funny, but I don't get any complaints. And as a commissioner, that's important, And I know if I get a complaint, it probably is not founded on good information.
I appreciate that. A lot of folks don't understand what we do until we meet them on their property and talk through, and they actually physically see what we do, at least for the on-site program. And once they do, they are very complimentary and appreciative of the work we do and the care we take, because it does take care and it does take time with each individual person, each individual dream of building a house or developing a property. And I appreciate that and my staff, and they've done an amazing job.
And I would only give you one word of advice. If you have to work overtime, make sure Quincy's opens on April the 30th.
Their plan review is complete.
But, everybody in the county is wanting to go to Quincy's.
Yeah, of course, of course.
All right, thank you, Tracy.
I only wanted to say, Tracy touched on this, and it's about staffing. She touched on the fact that we have some vacant positions. And part of that challenge we have is we're just not seeing the applicants come and apply for these positions. And a lot of it has to do with, number one, our pay structure is what it is. We compete with other counties in the area. And we have some very challenging conditions in Union County that you don't necessarily see in other counties. Our soil conditions are varied greatly. And I was one of those folks who went on one of those inspections with them and got to see what they had to do. And you couldn't pay me enough money to do what they do. But it is tough work, and they do a great job. But we do struggle because of the fact that we just don't have a pool to choose from. We're generally we're attracting people from other jurisdictions, not necessarily new talent.
And I've got to tell this story. Commissioner Simpson was doing some soil evaluation, so if his sons wanted to build near him, and the lady that you hired from the mountains,
Connie, the soil scientist?
She is a keeper. Yep. So I would say send her back up in the hills and bring some more people back. Because she loves her work, loves her job, loves her department, and she really gets, she looked like a squirrel running in and out of them holes that I dug. So she was very professional too.
Good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman Rape, Vice Chair Williams, board members, Manager Watson. I too appreciate the opportunity to come before you today and share some information about the planning department and what we do and share with you some of our recent accomplishments. If you think about it, in your daily life, just about everything you do, you have a plan. Whether or not it's going on vacation, whether retirement, your personal finances. When you develop that plan, you'll sit down, you'll consult with your family members, you'll talk to some partners, whether it's your financial planner, maybe you have a travel agent, and you come up with the plan that you're going to proceed with. Helps you know where you're going. And that's kind of what we do in the planning department. We work with community members, general members of the public, community partners, to develop consensus around ideas and how we want the county to grow over time. So that brings us to where we fit in with the county. And again, we build community consensus around those ideas. Much like the work we did recently with the Union County 2050 Comprehensive Plan. That was almost a 2-year-long process where we worked with members that were appointed by this board to develop a set of recommendations and a land use strategy to take us through 2050. I would be kind of negligent, though, if I didn't mention that from that community consensus and from those plans, we developed things like the Union County Development Ordinance and a lot of other economic development ideas that then feed into other programs and departments. So we do touch on all of these other strategic objectives in our department. So what do we do in planning? I talked about our long-range planning program, building that consensus. However, we also have our zoning program, which is made up, we call it current planning in our department. That's really where you get into issuing the day-to-day work, issuing zoning permits, reviewing subdivision plans, processing special use permits, things like that. And we have a stormwater program, and that is reviewing applications for new subdivisions in terms of stormwater runoff and floodplain evaluations and stream protection. Currently, we have 8 staff members in the planning department. That's broken down into 4 kind of separate categories. We have our long-range planning program, which is made up of a senior planner and a planner. We have our current planning program, which is a senior planner, a planner, and a code enforcement officer. Our stormwater program, which is a stormwater engineer, and our administrative section, which is the planning director and our admin staff. How do we go about measuring success in the planning department? We look at a number of different things. Zoning permits issued is one. You heard Mark talk about building permits being way up. This tracks right along with that. As you can see, we've had about a 75% increase since FY19 to FY21. We're on track to surpass that this year. As you can see, we're about slightly over almost 1,300 zoning permits issued this year. We also track building and zoning complaints. We work with building code and enforcement. We have a staff member that helps us with building and zoning complaints, and you can see that those numbers have increased as well. We look at stormwater and planning processing times, and this is the number of days it takes us to complete a review. You can see on the stormwater side, that number has ebbed and flowed over the years with the number of reviews that have come in. And with the planning department, we brought that number down from about 3 days to almost 2. So we've dropped it by a day. And then we also look at the workload on each individual planner. And that number is an average of the number of plan reviews that a planner does in a given year. So you can see that number looks pretty significant, and it is. That could be anything from a subdivision plan review to a rezoning request to a site plan for a new house. I did look at some of these numbers today just to see, because you'll hear in a minute some of the accomplishments that we've put in, that we've had over the years. And, these numbers are tracking pretty good. You know, I don't necessarily think that the planning processing time needs to change a bit, but we've put some items in place to help bring those stormwater times down. And I checked it right before this meeting, and we're down to 27 days now. So we've dropped that by a day. Some of our recent accomplishments, in FY 2019, We purchased traffic counters to help supplement NCDOT information. Many times, we noticed it during rezoning requests. We like to present the board with information regarding the number of vehicle trips per day on roads where people are requesting rezonings. We noticed a lot of times that some of the smaller roads did not have good, or sometimes didn't even have traffic counts at all. So we purchased these counters to help us with rezoning requests, but since then, we have helped out the libraries, we've helped out solid waste. I believe we've helped out the sheriff's department with traffic counts at various locations throughout the county. So it's been a pretty valuable resource for us. We completed the Secret Shortcut Small Area Plan. That was a joint planning effort with the town of Indian Trail that looked at the Secret Shortcut Road Corridor. In 2020, we purchased and installed rain gauges throughout the county, and that is helping us better understand rainfall variation throughout the county and flooding issues. We also reorganized the department to reflect a more modern planning organizational structure and that's helped us increase our productivity. Prior to 2020, we were really more of a flat organization. So we created some hierarchy in our program, and again, that has helped us tremendously in bringing some of those numbers down, those review times. We completed an update to the Union County Critical Intersection Analysis. The original, I believe, was done back in 2016, and that has directly helped get funding committed to several intersections throughout the county. And again, in 2019, we updated that because a lot of those projects did get funded. We also kicked off the development of the Union County 2050 Comprehensive Plan. In FY21, we worked with the Comprehensive Planning Committee to develop the framework for the 2050 Comp Plan. We had several staff members served as various panelists at conferences throughout the state. That could be regional conferences such as CARPO or Centralina Council of Government, or we even had members served on as panelists for NCAPA, which is a North Carolina chapter of the American Planning Association conference. And we also had a staff member complete the municipal and county administration course through the UNC School of Government. In 2022, we completed the development of the Union County 2050 Comprehensive Plan. That was a big deal. That was an update to again, that comprehensive plan sets the vision for the county through 2050 and brought that to the board for adoption, and you adopted that at the end of last year. We completed several extensive updates to the UDO due to the reorganization of the North Carolina planning statutes, known across the state as the 160D amendments. That's the state legislature took a lot of different planning statutes that were spread across the entirety of the statutes and put them all together in one piece. And it was a big undertaking. We committed, again, talking about the critical intersection program, we committed the remainder of the $500,000 capital program to the last intersection associated with that. So that was a pretty big accomplishment. We increased our online GIS mapping capability using ArcGIS Online. We have taken most of our paper material, such as rezonings going back to the late 60s, special use permits, and we've put those in mapping applications. So now the general public can go out on our website and they can see trends over time with rezonings, special use permits. Over 4,400 minor subdivisions are also on those mapping applications. So it's a good service to the public. And we had a staff member in 2022 receive their certified zoning official designation through the UNC School of Government. That's the highest designation that a zoning official can get in the state of North Carolina. And since I'm talking about certifications, you have probably one of the most certified staffs in North Carolina. You have 4 AICP members. I am taking a little bit of liberty there and counting Brian in that for, because Brian does do a lot for us. If I have questions, I can rely on Brian. He was a planner for years. And that's the highest certification that a planner can get in the United States. We have 3 certified zoning officials. We have 1 professional engineer. We have 1 certified floodplain manager and a certified transportation planner in our department. Some of our key initiatives going forward, we're going to work on implementing key aspects of the Union County 2050 plan. Those include open space provisions, cluster provisions, school siting, stormwater, litter, and broadband. We're in the process right now of purchasing some software that will help us map land use and land cover change over time. So we'll be able to see what the land use and land cover was in previous years, and then we will be able to see in various clips of time how the county's developed, and it'll help us see how various plans have worked and where we're going in the future. And we want to maintain review times for our zoning subprogram and improve those review times for the stormwater subprogram. So some future issues and challenges that our department is dealing with. Increased demand for varying levels of service. And what I mean by that is we have a very diverse county, and we have lots of folks that have moved in recently. We have lots of folks that have been here for a little while. And the types and levels of service that folks demand is different depending on a lot of times where you fall in that spectrum. But we want to offer the highest and best level of service that we can. And a lot of times it is walking a tightrope. So just that those varying demands for service can sometimes be a challenge. Employee attrition. You heard Tracy, you heard Mark talk about this. Brian talked about how this is a national trend. In the next 7 years, half of our department will be eligible for retirement. We were able to build in, again, I talked about how our organization was flat and we created some hierarchy. Hopefully, some of our younger planners will stay with us and we'll be able to move up and take on those roles as some of our senior staff members retire. You have seen some legislative actions. We've talked about them in board meetings that potentially can obstruct our ability to thoughtfully plan for growth. So that's an upcoming challenge. We don't see that changing over time. You heard Mark and Tracy also talk about office space. We are out of space. We're utilizing every single piece of real estate we have in the planning department. Storage space is another concern that we have. The archives office requires us to keep many of our records forever. Some we can dispose of, but some we have to keep. And we have a lot of paper. You can imagine we've been in operation since the late 60s, and we have a lot of old subdivision files. We have scanned most of those, but because we have paper, we have to keep it. Those are mostly up on the 3rd floor and the old jail, but we are running out of space just like everybody else. We do have some opportunities. We want to continue to build our relationships with the municipal planning staff, members and other jurisdictions. We have good relationships with them now. We do a lot of cross collaboration. We want to continue to do that. You heard Mark talk about the website, and that flows into kind of a one-stop center. When the general public comes in to get a permit, they don't need a lot of jargon. They don't need a lot of running back and forth to the planning department, building code, environmental health. They know they need to get a permit. And we understand that, and we want to simplify that. And that's one of the things that the 3 of us have been working on in earnest, is to try to make that happen. And to continue to build our in-house planning expertise. Many of our recent plans have been done completely in-house without utilizing consultant services. We want to continue to do that. We think we've been successful at it. We think we've done a fairly good job of putting those plans together. And we don't see any need to hire a lot of consultants to help us do that anymore. And that is all I have for you this evening, gentlemen. I'll be happy to answer questions.
Any questions? Lee, you've got to be the happiest person in the world because you smile all the time. So, but that's a good thing.
That is a good thing. I am happy.
Thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lee.
Yeah.
Next.
Yeah, I'm a visual person. I like pictures and, oh, you need to take a break, okay.
First off, I gotta get some glasses. I could have swore the lady that just left was you when she got up, and I was flipping through, and I was saying, which one is this? And it was her, not you.
Good afternoon to the board. I'm Crystal Gilliard, the Register of Deeds, and I'm here to just talk a little bit about our office and give you a little bit more information of what we do in case you're not aware. The first thing is, of course, our vision statement is to provide exceptional customer service to the residents of Union County and preserve and protect all the records in a manner that ensures integrity, completeness, accuracy, and safekeeping. Just as you are elected officials, I am too, so providing exceptional customer service is a high priority in my office, and also the responsibility of keeping the records accurate and with integrity. The two strategic objectives that cover our office is the community consensus. Our office works very close with the tax office, the Board of Elections. We did work with planning and doing some e-filing of maps. And we also work with North Carolina Vital Records and also the Health Department. So we have a lot of community priorities that we work with. The other one is organizational strengthening. This is pretty much what I looked at inside the office. Sharing what can help us. During the pandemic, we really had to dig deep on how to still serve the citizens of Union County and still do our work as well. So a lot of feedback from the staff and diving into new technology helped us a lot. Some of the programs that we have, I'll break them down. We have real estate and vital records. Real estate is all the real estate transactions that you see in the county. We record at that desk. We also record general documents. And when I say by general documents, a lot of people like to make up their own document and bring it in and record. They can. A lot of people have a misconception that we verify that's the owner, we verify they're allowed to do that, but by law, we're not allowed to do that. We can't practice law. We get in more trouble rejecting a document than we do if we just take it. So just keep that in mind that anything that comes across that desk, as long as the originality is there, we have to accept it. We also scan, we index, and we issue certified copies from those real estate filings. Then we have our vital records section where we record and scan birth, death, marriage license, marriage certificates. We administer notary oaths, and we record DD-214s, which are military discharges. Like I said, we work closely with the Health Department, Tax, and North Carolina Vital Records in Raleigh. We also have, thanks to the previous board, an automation enhancement program where we are in the middle of preserving vital records and deed books Our county goes back to 1842. Our vital records go back to 1913, except for marriages. They go back to 1842. So it's very important as we're trying to learn and keep up with technology. It's my responsibility to not forget about the paper and the value of that. That's just something you can't recreate. So it's very important that we work on keeping those documents preserved. And then probably the newest thing that we've done is our passports. We serve as an acceptance facility for the U.S. Department of State. I have 3 certified agents who review passports and provide photos. That has taken off more than I thought it would. It pretty much exceeded my expectations. And I have a gentleman who's very passionate about it and is very proud of where that passport facility is now. Current investments, I think this was given to you or through the slide by finance. I actually have 11 full-time staff, counting myself. And as you know, as an elected official, you can't always be in the office or be up here, so you have other priorities and engagements. So that's including myself, and I have 2 part-time. Those 2 part-time were previously retired from the Register of Deeds office. So when they come in, one comes in 2 days, the other one come in the other 2 days. It helps us tremendously. They can get right in there and get started. Measuring success. So as you can see, I divided most of these up. With the real estate, you can see in 2019, and some of these figures had something to do with the pandemic, some did not, some stayed the same, and I'll give you a little recap why. You can see in 2019 versus 2021, we almost did 20,000 more documents a year with the same amount of staff. So it's, and how I look today to see kind of where we were compared to last year. And last year, this time, we were recording documents on March 30th. So we're not too far off from where we were last year. Births, as you can see, it's pretty much the norm. I thought there might be some kind of increase due to the pandemic, everybody being at home, but I haven't seen that result yet. Deaths, as you can see, has grown. Marriages, you can tell a lot of this, for some reason in the pandemic world, I'm not sure why the reasoning, but a lot of people decided to get married. And the problem is that the surrounding counties were not open, or they were only allowing 1 marriage a day, because they were still following the law, but they came down to Union, and we were slammed with marriages. That's the most that we've ever done since I've been there. Notary oaths, pretty much the same. They have to come to Union to do their notary oath. And then the certified copies, this is all certified copies of birth, death, marriage, real estate recordings. There is an influx of that because the electronic world and the technology allows people to come to this county to get birth records, marriage records, death records from other counties. So if they don't want to travel to Mecklenburg or go back to the mountains or the coast, they can come to our office if they're here and get those records. So I think that's why the influx of those is there. And then the last part is our passports. As you can see, in 2020, that's when the pandemic hit. The federal government did shut down the passport office for about 8 months. But as you can see, in 2021, it jumped tremendously. And as of March 31st, that's how many we've done. And I can tell you right now, we're booked every 15 minutes until May 20th right now. And that's not even including walk-ins. We work very close with Congressman Bishop's office. He handles congressional carries because some people don't plan or they have emergencies. So we work very closely with Joseph over there at his office and try to get these individuals their passports. As you can see, since the inception of the passport office, we've collected over $389,855. And also on that note, I guess I've been in office for 18, going on 19 years, and this is the only, in 2021, I had 2 months that we collected more than $1 million. And I've never seen that. So it's pretty, I patted my staff on their back because they did a great job making that happen. I know some of that came in with land transfers and so forth, but I think that's pretty impressive.
Crystal, can I ask a question real quick? Mm-hmm. Those births going down, now that's just who's born in Union County, or is that?
Right, and a lot of people go
to Mecklenburg.
To Mecklenburg. I'm hoping that the new hospital in Stallings will make a change in that. Maybe people up in the Indian Trail area, they'll go to that hospital now, because I was very excited to hear that they were a birthing hospital. So yeah, thank you for making that note. On births, it is wherever you were born is only when your birth certificate's going to be.
Crystal, you mentioned the $1 million a couple of months on revenue stamps. How is that split, or where does it go?
We retain, is it 49%? And then the state gets 51%? Yeah, I think that's how it's split.
That's wonderful.
Mm-hmm. All right, some accomplishments. We were able to digitize our DD-214s, our military discharges. We don't have a lot of those. A lot of people are not aware that they need to file those. It's free. It's about the only thing free now. So there's really no harm or, why people don't file them, because if that veteran or that person in the military was to pass away, we have the record. And if dealing with family members and so forth, when you're trying to find these important records at a devastating time in your life, it's kind of hard to get to those. So we try to make a point to get those recorded because the funeral homes need that, veterans needs it, so the Veterans Administration. So it's very important. We're trying to get the word out for that. We also, in 2019, we were able to, the passport office was doing so well, we renovated an office within the Register of Deeds office to make it more private, because you are telling your Social Security numbers, you are kind of telling your business, and so we wanted a more personal space for them. And then we also partnership with Wingate University. They have a global class where we went to Wingate. We did a bunch of passport fairs for them, and we were able to help their students obtain passports without them having to leave the campus and come downtown and park and so forth. So that was a great partnership. We enjoyed that. In 2020, I don't know if many people know, but the governor declared our office essential, so we stayed open. Even though the doors out here were closed, we were in the lobby, we were performing mayor's license, we were getting birth certificates, we were picking up maps, deeds. We probably got more steps in than we ever have in our life going up and down the stairs, but we tag teamed. The staff was great. We were able to kind of shift some hours and still stay caught up. So that also led into us electronically filing maps, which was a good thing. I worked with Lee on that, and that helped kind of streamline that process. And we also installed our credit card machines for the recording area. In 21, we enabled a property notification alert, and it's free to the citizens or whoever wants to check on any kind of property that they have. It's on our website. You click, you fill in your name. I've done it, and I've had stuff that's come up. I knew I did it, but it's kind of neat to see it come up and it actually works. But all it does is you put in a name that you want it to search for, And when something comes across our desk, you get an email alert with the email that you put in, and you call our office, and we kind of explain to you what that document is. You may have forgotten you paid off a loan, or you refinanced, or there was just, something that was filed fraudulently. So it's a free service. It's not foolproof because, like I said, anybody can come in and file anything, and we have to take it. So it doesn't prevent someone from coming in and filing anything, but at least it lets you know a whole lot faster than if you go on vacation and you come home and there's somebody in your house. So, or if you have rental property and all of a sudden you have a squatter. So it's a great tool. A lot of people, like I said, I'm still trying to get the word out about it, but I know Communications, she's not here, but she's sent out information to remind people to sign up because it's free. What's the harm? We also digitized all of our Department of Transportation maps, and we re-indexed those. That was a pretty big project for us because they were just in a book. There was no backup for them, so we're pretty proud of that. And then we developed a birth application QR code that we were able to give to Atrium Hospital here in Monroe and Stallings, where new mothers or whomever can scan that QR code in, go ahead and fill out the birth certificate and send in the request, and that way we can go ahead and be on the look out of it and work on it. Because a lot of people think that you can only get those records in Raleigh, and so I'll go a little bit more into that just in the next slide, but it's going to save them a lot of time and a lot of money, and just bring us more business as well. So that seems to be working very well. We're excited about that. And then one of the accomplishments that we're working on currently is that our Vital Records Department is working with North Carolina Vital Records in Raleigh. And so it's important that you differentiate those two. And I'll tell you why in a minute. But we are learning a new electronic birth system and a new electronic death system. And that enables us to pull electronic births from the health department, issue them. It's just faster. It's cleaner because they're typed. It's not somebody's handwriting and trying to figure out if that's a 5 or a 6 or what's that last name. So the deaths are the same way. So this is going to hopefully reduce a lot of errors that come from the funeral homes and from the individuals that are filling those out. And then we are working on rekeying the old births and deaths so we can all obtain them on the computer system. Some of our key initiatives is to re-partnership with Wingate. They reached back out to me. I think they're ready to go overseas again. That program is going to be up and running for the spring semester next year. So we will probably start our passport fairs sometime in the fall to get those students ready. And also, I've also partnered with Union County Public Schools to give them the information about obtaining birth records, letting parents know they can come to our office to get birth records. Anyone born 1971 and up, if you were not born in this county, I can get it. The office can. So it's a very good service, and I think a lot of those people who move into this area aren't aware of that. So we're able to help them and trying to get that information on the school website. As always, we have security checks and backup redundancy to prevent hacking. It's forefront. We talk about it all the time. I know we hear about it all the time in the news and so forth. That's something that we work on daily, and Logan Systems, who is our vendor, makes sure that that is backed up in several different locations. Manage customer service demands as the county grows. I think you've heard from other people as we grow, there's more people want more from you. They may not like what you have to say, but we try to help them and not put them off on someone else. A lot of people want to do things their way. They don't want to get an attorney. They want to, and then they come to us and they want us to tell them how to prepare documents and so forth. So it's, we have to be very careful in that fine line, but customer is, we try to help as much as we can without crossing that. The preservation of records. If you remember, Commissioner Simpson, I think I had showed you your birth record, right? So I just want to thank.
Still don't have a name.
I know. So I just want to show you what the preservation looks like now. This is an 1842 marriage license book. So thank you for letting me preserve these records because they are, they're pretty awesome now. They're all bound instead of looking like this. So we're up to 1981, and as like you said, some of it's falling apart. So that's the key initiative that we work on every year because when I'm long gone, y'all are gone. I mean, people are still going to want these records. This is history. This is where the county is. I mean, that's if you want to know anything about the county, you just go to the second floor and you're going to find it. And a lot of them are duct taped. And so we're working through those to make sure that they're preserved. It's not cheap, but we're doing the best we can. And always to provide exceptional customer service. Future issues and challenges. We are working on, like I said before, rekeying the birth index back to 1913 and also on the real estate records. Because a lot of the indexes back, before our current vendor was in 1993, but before that, we just have scanned images of stuff. And so we want to index those so there's a complete system under one search. It just looks cleaner. If you go up there and look at any of the books, a lot of the pages are missing. Even though they've been scanned in, still, we'd like to clean that up and reprint those if we can. And before the previous vendor, I don't have access to those records. We also would like to look into an online appointment system to better handle passport requests. Like I said, we have appointments every 15 minutes till May 20th right now, May 17th, May 20th, and that's my staff answering the phone. We probably spend 15 minutes, 20 minutes going over, this is what you need to bring, this is what you need to do, this is how you need to pay for it, and then making the appointment and so forth. It takes up a lot of staff time. So if I could get some kind of the same system when people would schedule their COVID booster or, get tested or something like that, look like it would help us a lot in answering those calls. Keeping the staff trained and up to date with the law changes and any program changes, that's always a big issue or challenge either way. And then, as I mentioned before, assisting North Carolina Vital Records, there is a difference between vital records at your local level and North Carolina Vital Records. They are about 60,000 birth requests behind. Because people don't know you can just go to your local county and get the birth record. So they have finally reached out to us for assistance, and probably myself and 3 other counties have said, yeah, we'll help you. Because I'm it's kind of frustrating to me. I'm talking to individuals on the phone and they've been waiting 4 to 6 months to get their birth record. And I'm like, well, if your child was born here, you could walk in and walk back out. They're just blown away. That's why I'm hoping the education at the hospitals, given the new birth record, information will help. But they are severely behind, and it's almost to the point where it's embarrassing, but they mix us up with them. So I make sure they know which is which. But They also are, if anybody's having to amend their record, they're 10 to 12 months behind. So if you're trying to get your name on your birth certificate right now, yeah, it'll be next year probably before you can get that record. And a lot of people need it right now for a different passport to travel, to their license or whatever. They want to get the new real ID. And so we're trying to help them. They're trying to work out the money situation, but we are ready to go. We're ready to assist them to hopefully help with that backlog. Also work to manage customer demands in general and for real estate e-closings in the ever-changing e-filing world. That's always constantly changing as technology is. And as you've heard with everybody else, just the competitive pay for employees to keep them, because we spend all this time training and sending them to schools and so forth. We like to keep them as much as we can, because they definitely help run the office and help make a good name for the Register of Deeds and for the county. I think that's it.
Any comments?
Question.
Commissioner Hill.
You said that you don't get copies of birth certificates out of county, even though they're a resident here, right?
If somebody's born in Charlotte.
Yeah.
71 and up. If they're born 1971 and up, then we can get their birth record from any county in the state of North Carolina.
Is there notification on deaths as well?
Deaths is August of 2020. It's weird, but we're hoping they'll get back to match births, but that depends on Raleigh. So we have to depend on them.
Crystal, I want to thank you for making me a better person, and I think you know what I'm talking about. I was told by several people that I better learn how to park. And so out there in the parking lot.
You're good. We made up, remember?
Right. But I just wanted you to tell everybody you have forgiven me. Frank Akmus used to keep me straight, and then when he was gone, I started parking crooked again. And the manager did it too. He said, you better go apologize to that lady because she is upset with you. So Patrick put a 50-foot restraining order on me, so I can't park with him.
You're good.
But thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
I never hear anything, nobody ever calls me about Register of Deeds either, and I'm sure the other commissioners are there too, so. No news is good news.
That's all right. Thank you.
Mhm.
I brought my driver with me. Let me tell you something before we start this program. I've sat and listened to all of it, and I'm impressed with our county staff and what we've got in this county that you listened to today. And our manager and our people that run this county have, it's impressive to sit and listen to all we've got when we know other counties don't have that. So, anyway, let me start out. I think. Look at there. Designated driver. You've listed public safety is on there as your top priority. But understand that that's not just law enforcement. That's a combination of public safety needs. That's fire, rescue, EMS, all the things, the communications down there, and all that's a combination of public safety. So when we talk about it, keep that in mind. It's not just law enforcement. You see that overview, the administration, we're divided up in these situations: administration, community service, detention, patrol, and division services. That's just an overview, but you see the administration and community services, that's all our school resource officers, all the things that are in our school, our investigations, all the things going on. Certainly detention is the jail. Patrol is what you see is patrol. That's the contract officers and everything it takes to run this county. Division services, that's a pretty big deal right there. That's the firing range, that's the property, evidence storage, procurement, information technology, gun purchases, permits, concealed carry. That's a big deal right there. I don't know if you want to look at this or not, but that's what it costs. It's divided up where you see, and the FT is full-time employees, part-time employees. She just sent me just a minute ago, we are out of 34 employees. We're 5 down and we have backgrounds out on them, so we'll be full in probably the next week. We don't lack for applicants. I do see Charlotte is now offering us $7,500 sign-in bonuses if you come up there to go to work. We won't lose any employees. We'll keep our employees and they'll keep their money, but it's competitive out there. We're very fortunate that the county has kept our salaries at a rate that we can compete with them. Our people are happy. Our people are doing out there the job that needs to be done, and that's what keeps good employees. And it's a combination of things, but I think it's a combination of things that says the public here in this county appreciates and supports law enforcement. We don't have all the mess going on that you see out there, and that's why we keep help. We keep people working. Measuring success. You see that public safeties, jail operations, you can see what's up there on the board. Patrol events, 145,000 patrol events. That's amazing. That is in 2019. 2020, 168,000. 21, 180,000. We didn't miss a beat during COVID. We had COVID like everybody else had it, but we dealt with it and went on. We answered every call. We did our jobs, and you see what it turns out is the public expects us to be there, and we want to be there. You can look at unit services, the number of adoptions, public safety, 662 in 19. Let me say this. We have now, our animal services is pretty amazing. We are at 100% on cats last month. I've got this little note right here. The Cat Coalition of the New South. We partnered with them, and we will give them all our feral cats. They took 30 last month.
Yeah.
That keeps us from euthanizing those, and it keeps our euthanizing rates down. If we hadn't have taken all the animals from Wingate, we had to take some distressed animals from Wingate, we would have been above 90% rescue rate and adoption rate. We would have been a no-kill shelter. Next month we will be. So a lot going on. In 20 years, we have no unsolved murders in Union County. Think about that. Think about where we live next to. I'm gonna tell you, we've solved all the murders in Union County. Case clearance is above the normal average. Opening of the training facility, the firing range, it's the talk of the state, that firing range is. Everybody wants to come shoot there. implementation of a physical fitness program. Y'all probably don't even know that we've put in place a physical fitness program that started last year and will increase a little bit this year, and next year it'll be mandatory. So we're moving forward in that to help our people. Maintain consistent response times year after year. Our response times continue to be low, and we answer every call. This is something else that's different. We answer every call. I don't care what it is, how frivolous it is, the doorbell, somebody's ringing my doorbell. I shouldn't say this, but I heard a call come in yesterday. Woman opened the dryer and found a animal with a white stripe down its back and shut the dryer and called 911. So we'll answer those calls. We go out, we do it all. Expansion of the K-9 program. You know, the K-9 program is a very important program. We're about 12 K-9s now, a bomb dog, the things that are necessary to run this county. Full-time public safety, public information officer. We are, and I think, the largest full-time, full-service law enforcement agency in the state of North Carolina. What I mean by that is we do it all. We run the jail, we run the courts, we run animal services. It's not broken up into departments. We do it all. So I'm pretty sure we're one of the largest full-time law enforcement officers in the state. Partnership with inmate health. That's, you may not realize, but we manage inmate health through the health department with Dennis Joyner, and then he hires the nurses and the facility to handle the inmate health. It's probably one of the lowest cost in the state of North Carolina. We get calls all the time. How are you keeping your money down? How are you doing it? This is what we do. And so we tell them, and they say, well, you know, we used to try that, but it never did work. Well, it works, let me tell you. And we work with the health department. They work with us, and it really works good. And during COVID, no reduction of service. Recent accomplishments. You see right there whose Deputy Horn is now passed on in a vehicle accident. In 2017, MAD was the North Carolina Deputy of the Year for DUI, arrested more than anybody else in the state of North Carolina. A SAFE unit, MAD, DUI Task Force of the Year. All our people are out there working. Since the inception of the SAFE unit, more than 700 DUI kits is sent to the state labs for testing. We're going to talk a little bit about that in just a little bit. Multiple lives has been saved by the SRO in the schools. Think about all the things, Heimlich maneuver and the bomb in Forest Hills, and it's every week there's something, and our school resource officers are there to protect those children. We worked 1,700 traffic accidents last year. We're the top in the state, and for an officer, Chad Barbie has worked more wrecks than any officer in the state of North Carolina for the last 2 years in a row. That's pretty amazing. He worked 459 wrecks last year in Union County. That's important because it means our citizens, before we started working wrecks, we were out there and we're sitting there directing traffic for an hour, hour and a half, or 2 hours, waiting on a highway patrolman to come because they're so understaffed. Then we made the decision, we can just work the wrecks and be done with it. So we now work the wrecks, be done with it, and we're gone in 30 minutes. So it's saving all the way around, and it saves everybody. We're one of the only, but not the only, charging dealers for death of distribution in the state of North Carolina. We've been charging for about 2 years. We're one of the only counties that do that. We're one of the only district attorneys that allow that to happen. We're very fortunate here with our district attorney working hand in hand with us to keep things moving in a good direction. Providing efficient police services to 5 municipalities. We have 5 contract cities here: Indian Trail, Lake Park, West of Chapel, Weddington, Marvin. They pay the bill on that. You go back and look at those figures on there, the 36 million started out at 41 million, and they pay their portion of it that drops it to 36 million. So they're right now about to add 3 more officers in Indian Trail. They're doing their part, but they've realized that it's a good deal. They're getting officers there. Their citizens are happy with an 83% satisfaction rate. So it's a good deal for the whole county and for us too, because those same officers in Indian Trail help the officers outside of Indian Trail to answer calls, answer things that are important. Certainly you know we're opening a new administration building. All of you been down there, it's pretty important that that building, expansion of the IT staff, now that building to help us with the things. You just heard how important IT is throughout this county. It's important to us too, and we use it a lot. We're going to open a crime lab. It'll be, I think, the only one in the sheriff's office in North Carolina. It'll be in conjunction with the labs that are state labs that are around that we can't get any help with, that we don't, we're not happy with them. Let's just say that. We sent an officer down there with evidence. They schedule you a time to take the evidence. You have to hand carry it now. You can't ship it. So you hand carry it down there. You send two officers down there to manage it. They won't let one of them in. They just let one in. She sits there and takes evidence for an hour. At her appointment's over, they send her back with 15 pieces of evidence. That needs to stop, and we're going to put a stop to that. We think it's important. Those 700 blood tests that you saw earlier in that slide, the state defendants will pay $600 a piece for every one of those blood tests that we run. So we think it's a good thing for the county. We think it's a good thing for this region, and we're looking forward to get it off the ground. It's important that these other cities in our county are doing the same thing. They're facing the same things we are. We just can't get enough evidence through. And it takes months and months and months. So that'll be something that we'll open it up to our county to start with, and then probably we'll open it up to the region, because Stanley, Cabarrus, Anson, they're facing the same problems we are. So, and I'm sure that that's going to be a big success. Proactive drugs. If you watch our Facebook page, you know that our net unit is out there every day, and they're locking them up, bringing them in and locking them up. I'm so proud of all the work they put in to get it done, but they do every day. And it's showing up. We do community programs. We want to continue that. One of them is our big Veterans Day that we'll have again this year. It's a big deal to our veterans. It's a big deal to our office, and I think it's a great program. We just think it's important. Implementation of the virtual use of force training. That's probably what's going in one of those old rooms at our old administration, is a virtual training where you can go in and it'll be real life on the computer, real gun, pull a gun, shake, floor shakes, roof shakes. It's we think that'll be we think we're going to have it. So A lot going on. Supply chain issues. We're facing the same thing everybody else is, vehicles. You know, we've ordered vehicles, been in front of your board 2 or 3 times. But we're getting by with it. But it's the same thing with delays in delivery, ordered equipment, quality of the vehicles. That's a big deal right now. We ordered 5 vehicles. One of them with 8,000 miles had to have a partial new engine. One of them with 200 miles had to have a brand new engine in it. We hadn't got it back yet. It's just everything's in turmoil, but it's just part of doing business right now, so we're gonna get by. Our jail maintenance, certainly we've talked to Mark and we've talked to about the deterioration of the jail. You know, it's got all kinds of issues, so we're gonna have to manage that. Just got to keep a safe and secure facility. One of the things is crime rates. We want to keep our crime rate low. Our crime rate's down, our serious crimes down, our minor crimes are down. We just think it's a big deal. We're getting a lot of spillover from Mecklenburg County that think they want to come down here and we want to arrest them and then get by with it. But they're soon finding out that this is not the place to come. I say this, you know what up on the wire means with the drug families talking to each other, coming out of Texas and out of Mexico. It's pretty impressive when your drug dealers call another drug dealer and say, we want you to meet us, we got everything, we'll be there, we'll meet you at the Walmart in Indian Trail, and the other drug dealer says, no, you ain't coming to, don't go to Union County, it's to stay in Mecklenburg. And that tells you we're doing something right. Thank you. I got that right, didn't I?
Comments?
Let me ask you this. Anything you want to ask me, it's a good time. We're very proud of our organization. We are proud of this agency and the people that work at this agency. And I heard it said today when Mark was talking and saying it's the people that work here is what does it. And I think that's right. It's our officers that work there that are every day and do the job that's expected of them. And it's not because we're out there making them do it, it's because they want to do it, and we appreciate it. Any questions?
You answered it all, Sheriff.
A couple of years ago, you were having issues with the upfits of the cars. It was taking a long time for the cars to be upfitted and whatnot, and we worked on that, and I'm sure the board would like to hear your perspective of how that program is working right now.
What he's talking about is we were having to send our cars to South Carolina, to wherever we could find some place that could install radios, cages, all the things that you have to put in a car to upfit it. And recently, county has seen fit to hire 3 people, Ralph and 2 more, that do our own upfitting. They work out of the old school bus garage. But that'll soon change. But it's probably the best thing we've done as far as cars and getting them done. Get them in over there. They jump right on them and get them back out of there. Actually, the car with the blowed motor in it is, when they brought it in, they said, there's something wrong with this thing. And they said, yeah, it hadn't even been issued. And we took it right straight to the Chevrolet dealership, and they worked on it. And they said it's got to have a new motor, complete new motor, that the piston was swap-sided in it. And but this has been a good thing. Now, as my understanding is, it's going back to the old facility over here at the garage pretty soon. I don't know exactly whether everything's got worked out on that. and they'll be moving out of there, but it's really been a good program. They got good people, and they do us a good job. Lynn, you got anything? Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. No further questions, comments? You want to say something, Mark?
That's all we have for you this afternoon.
What?
I say that's all we have for you this
Okay,
afternoon.
I make a motion that we adjourn. All in favor?
And leave these behind.